There's a withdrawal happening all around us. Men are checking out, not loudly, not violently, but they're just stepping away from dating and from relationships and from the hope that anyone will ever really choose them. They've been mocked, they've been mischaracterized, they've been written off as either bitter or broken or just plain hateful. But beneath the headlines and all the heat is something far simpler, something sadder, something that deserves to be named. And that is pain. Not just disappointments, but the kind of soul deep ache that makes you just stop trying. The kind that says, if connection always costs this much, maybe it's just not worth it anymore. And this is where MGTOW begins. For those of you unfamiliar, MGTOW stands for Men Going Their Own Way, MGTOW. And it's a movement that's made up of men who have chosen to opt out of traditional romantic and sexual relationships with women. And it's not monolithic. Some men in the MGTOW movement are simply just done dating, whereas others reject marriage entirely. Some are angry, some are detached, others are peaceful, and still others are deeply bitter. But what unites them is it's a decision to withdraw. And that withdrawal, I believe, is a mirror for a culture that never taught men how to heal. So let me be clear. This episode is not a defense of MGTOW and its ideology. It's an attempt to understand the emotional reality that gave rise to this movement. Because whether you agree with the movement or not, what it reveals about male pain, I don't think can be ignored. MGTOW didn't rise out of nowhere. It came from years and decades of unspoken grief, of men who felt used or misrepresented, unseen or even disposable. And for many of them, the movement isn't about misogyny. It's about self-preservation. When you've never been taught how to process betrayal, you build distance instead of boundaries. You shut people out, you shut down instead of opening up, you walk away instead of risking being abandoned yet again. But let's maybe just take a step back, because to understand MGTOW, you have to understand how male pain gets ignored in the first place. Most boys are taught, again, early that their emotions are dangerous, that crying is for the weak, that hurt feelings are embarrassing, especially to express, that loneliness, you just have to get over it. And the only acceptable emotion for many young boys is anger. And even that must be controlled. So what happens to all the other emotions then? They don't just disappear. They hide, they mutate, and they get rerouted. And a 7-year-old boy who feels abandoned, say, becomes a 17-year-old boy who mocks romance. And a 10-year-old boy who was bullied becomes a 30-year-old man who avoids all vulnerability. And a 14-year-old boy who watched his dad get emotionally destroyed in a divorce becomes now a man who swears off commitment entirely. These aren't villains. They're men who are trying to survive in a world that punished them for feeling. MGTOW is, at its core, often grief in disguise. A grief that says, I've tried and I've opened up, I mean, I've been mocked and I've been rejected, I've been ghosted, I've been cheated on, lied to, I've been discarded, and when it hurts too much to keep hoping, well, the only thing that's left to do is to retreat, to protect what's left, to stop playing a game that feels rigged against you, to, in essence, go your own way, MGTOW. Not out of arrogance, but out of exhaustion. And this doesn't make every MGTOW belief healthy, not at all. It doesn't mean that the movement is the answer. That's not what I'm saying. But it does mean that we need to stop laughing at the pain that is there. Because the more we mock their withdrawal, the more that we prove their points. They didn't feel safe. They didn't feel seen. They didn't feel like they mattered. And now, when they try to explain why they walked away, they're shamed for that too. But the truth is, this isn't just a MGTOW issue. It's a mirror for any man who's ever felt like connection wasn't worth the risk. For any man who's ever thought that I'd rather be alone than be disappointed again. For any man who's learned that hope can hurt worse than numbness. And this mirror doesn't just reflect men, it reflects a society that's taught them to cope by disappearing. I want to look a little deeper now into how these patterns form. I mean, what leads a man from longing to loathing? And how do cultural narratives around masculinity and worth and dating reinforce the pain? And most importantly, how do we begin to interrupt this storyline? Because the answer isn't withdrawal. But it's also not shame. The answer is healing. It's repair. It's a bridge back to us again. To understand the deeper emotional mechanics of MGTOW, we need to look at the unspoken contract that many men were given about their worth. And for many men, their value was tied to performance. How much do they earn? How confident do they appear? How many women desire them? How stoic can a man be under pressure? They were not taught to cultivate emotional intelligence. They were not also taught how to receive care. They were not taught how to be loved in the absence of their status. And so when connection fails, when a breakup blindsides them, when vulnerability is met with mockery, when they realize that love does not guarantee loyalty, well, they don't know what to do with the pain. There's no emotional roadmap in this, is there? There's no language that they've been taught. And there's just the experience of loss. And when loss becomes a chronic, recurring experience, it transforms into a storyline, into a narrative. And it's just not that she hurt me, it's women will always hurt me. It's not just that I failed at love, it's that love is a total scam. And this is how despair begins to harden into a dogma. It doesn't start in hate, it starts in this heartbreak zone. But heartbreak, you see, without healing leads to hostility, doesn't it? Not always like the loud kind. Oftentimes it's quiet, it's detached, it's dismissive. And often it looks like superiority, but it's rooted in self-protection. And the man who says, I don't need any more, was likely never shown how to be safely needed. The man who mocks romance was likely crushed when it failed him. And the man who insists that he's better off alone may be telling the truth. Because connection without safety always feels worse than solitude. And what's tragic is how often this pattern goes unseen. A man gets hurt. He retreats. He tries again, maybe once or twice. He gets hurt again, and then he gets told to man up, or to move on, or just stop whining. And so he stops talking. But the pain doesn't leave. It just burrows deeper. He stops reaching out. He distracts himself with work, or games, or porn, philosophy, fitness, anything that doesn't require him to risk being known. And slowly he starts building a worldview, not one that's based on curiosity, but on protection. And protection becomes now his new goal. Not growth, not healing, just don't get hurt again. So he adopts beliefs that insulate him. He'll say modern women are all the same, or romance is just manipulation. Emotional needs are a trap. And men get nothing in return, so why do we even bother? And each belief adds a brick to this wall, a wall that keeps out disappointment and feeling, but it also keeps out intimacy as well. Because here's the thing, this wall is very effective. It works, at least for a while. It protects, it stabilizes, it even offers a sense of power. But deep down, behind this wall, the pain is still alive. The longing has not disappeared at all. It's just been silenced. And that silence grows in the quiet hours, when no one is texting back, when accomplishments feel empty, when scrolling through life isn't enough, and when being untouched stops feeling like freedom, and instead starts feeling like exile. And yet, even in that place, most men won't name what's really going on, because we didn't teach them how in the first place. We didn't teach them that pain can be shared, that grief is not a weakness, that the heartbreak is not shameful. Instead, we give them one tool, and that is detachment. And when detachment doesn't work, we give them another, anger. But no one told them that they were allowed to be human. No one told them that they were allowed to say things like, I feel unwanted, or I feel invisible. I feel broken and I don't know how to fix myself. So they found each other online. And for the first time, they weren't alone. They weren't shamed for giving up. They were affirmed instead for it. They were celebrated in the midst of it. And this movement began to grow. Not just in number, but also in ideology. Because pain loves company, doesn't it? But unhealed pain, it also loves certainty. Certainty feels safe. It tells you the world is simple, that women are this, that men are that, and that love is a scam, and that going your own way is the only path to peace. But that certainty comes at a cost. It costs one their curiosity. It costs one the capacity to grow. It costs one the possibility of true deep healing. And maybe most tragically this, it costs one the chance for connection. Because you cannot connect when there's a wall. You can't connect through a wall. You can't receive love if you're always bracing for betrayal. You can't feel chosen if you've never let anyone close enough to see who you are. And you can't heal what you refuse to name. Let's maybe spend a bit of time exploring how men begin to move forward from this point. Not by rushing back into romantic pursuits, but by reclaiming this emotional literacy that was denied to them for such a long spell. Let's talk about how to mourn what was lost and how to soften without self-erasing. And even more, how to build relationships that honor both integrity and intimacy. Because going your own way may protect you from pain, but going with others is how we come back to life again. So how do we begin this return? How does a man who's been burned by connection and mocked for vulnerability and been rewarded for detachment, how does this man even begin to trust intimacy again? The answer is not easy, but it's kind of simple. He must relearn what feels like safety again. Not just physical safety, but emotional safety. The kind of safety that says, I see you, not for what you provide, not for how impressive you are, and not for what you can perform, but I see you for who you are in your unguarded truth. But before a man can receive that kind of safety, he must learn first to create it within himself. Because here's the truth. Most men, especially in the MGTOW space, are not only reacting to women, they're also reacting to a lifelong absence of emotional security. When you've spent decades bracing for betrayal from partners or from friends or even from family, you stop believing that safety is even possible. And so you start equating emotional openness with emotional danger. And your nervous system adjusts accordingly. And you call numbness peace. You call control freedom. And you call walking alone strength. But beneath all this is still that same pain. That pain that says, I wish I could be loved without having to earn it. That ache is sacred. It's not your weakness. It's your soul refusing to die. So what now? The rebuild starts small, starts subtle and quiet, not with grand romantic gestures, but with a single act of emotional integrity. Telling the truth about how you are actually feeling, not just online, not just in theory, but in your real physical life. It might sound something like, I'm realizing how much I've built my identity around not needing anyone. Or it might sound like, I think I've used detachment as a way to feel safe, but I'm still lonely. You see, these aren't admissions of defeat. Instead, they are declarations of strength. Because to name your pain without blaming, that's courage. And to soften your instinct is to harden, that's evolution. And as you do this work, as you begin to step out from behind this wall that you've created, you're going to start to attract a different kind of connection. It won't be the performative kind of connection, and not the transactional kind as well that you're familiar with. It's not rooted in proving that you're worthy, but instead it's grounded in something that's richer. Intimacy is born of integrity, this alignment between your inner truth and your outward actions and your presence, this is where real trust is able to grow. It's where love becomes sustainable, and where you don't have to be perfect, but you just have to be honest. But let's be real. This isn't always welcomed, is it? When you begin to change, oh, the systems that benefited from your silence, they're most likely going to resist. And some men around you may mock your shift. They may say you're getting soft, right? Or worse, they may say that you're betraying them by seeking connection again. But you're not betraying brotherhood by healing. You are instead expanding it. You are offering a new way, a way that doesn't require bitterness to feel bonded, a way that doesn't demand that you stay broken to belong. Because there's a whole generation of men who are aching for permission to feel again, to reconnect, to return. And your healing, it becomes a doorway for theirs. So let's spend a moment and talk practically. What does this return look like on a daily level? Number one, start building emotional muscles in low-risk spaces. So practice naming your real experience in conversations. When someone asks how you're doing, try saying something like, honestly, I'm a little off today. I'm trying to stay grounded, but yeah, there's something going on. That's not heavy, but it's real. Secondly, engage with people who model emotional safety. Look for friendships, yes, friendships, with men who can hold space without, without turning everything into a joke or a fixed project or even a performance. And this is rare, but it's out there. Thirdly, reframe rejection as information, but not an indictment. Not every connection is going to work out. And that doesn't mean that you're broken. It just means that you're learning who your nervous system feels safe with. Okay? That's wisdom, not failure. And here's an even deeper truth. You were not designed to do life alone. That's not weakness. It's wiring, okay? Human beings are biologically relational. And connection is not a luxury, it's survival. And friendlessness or partnerlessness or detachment, they aren't badges of honor. They're symptoms of an injured heart that's trying to cope. But you see, healing is possible. And this healing begins when you say, I want more than distance. I want something that is real. I want to move on to explore a little bit now of what this real could look like and how men can become safe enough not only to receive love, but also to give it as well with open hands and open hearts and generosity. Because that is the kind of masculinity I believe this world is starving for, and the kind of every man deserves to live into. So let's imagine something for a moment, shall we? A man who once swore off connection begins to soften. And he doesn't leap into a new relationship. He doesn't join a movement. He simply chooses one quiet day to tell the truth about what he's really feeling. And that moment, simple as it is revolutionary, because in that moment, he is no longer defined by what hurt him. He is now choosing what is going to heal him. That moment is the start of reclaiming intimacy. And for men coming out of the MGTOW movement, or any story of emotional detachment for that matter, that reclamation can be the start of a life that they didn't even know was still possible. So, what does that new story look like? It begins with emotional fluency, not just knowing how you feel, but trusting that those feelings actually matter. Not just recognizing your wounds, but refusing to let them drive your decisions. It also requires integrity, which is, again, the alignment between who you say you are and who you show up as. Because intimacy without integrity is not safe. And integrity without intimacy, well, that's just a polished mask. You see, real connection is sustainable. It's soul deep. It requires both integrity and intimacy. Let's talk a little bit about what plays out in practice when you apply these. When a man grows in emotional maturity, he becomes more grounded and not less masculine. He's not thrown off by rejection because he actually knows that his worth is not up for negotiation. He doesn't panic when a woman cries because he's learned how to hold emotion and not necessarily to fix it. He doesn't need to control or dominate because he trusts his presence is enough. And when he loves loves cleanly. No manipulation, no performing, no keeping score or checklists. Just an honest, secure, mutual devotion. That kind of man, he's rare, but not impossible. And that kind of man isn't found in MGTOW forums. He's found in the quiet corners of men who are doing their healing. Men who are unlearning what never really served them. Men who are choosing connection without sacrificing their dignity. This doesn't mean that every man who goes MGTOW is evil or lost. It just means that they've been failed by culture, by parents perhaps, by systems that taught them that strength is the same as silence. And many are still living under that belief. That detachment is the only way to stay sane, is what they've been taught. Now, walking alone is safer than walking together. But what if the danger isn't in being vulnerable? What if the real danger is staying numb? Because numbness doesn't protect you from life. Numbness just delays the moment that it breaks through. So here's my invitation to you. Not to rejoin dating, not to pretend that you're not hurt, but instead to ask, what kind of man do I want to be right now? Is it a man who hides behind walls? Or a man who wants to build bridges? A man who blames the world for his pain? Or a man who learns to hold that pain with integrity? A man who consumes women? Or a man who honors them? A man who fears intimacy, or a man who welcomes it because he finally feels safe within himself? There's something precious about being a man who feels. It's not dramatic, it's not theatrical, and it's not weak, but it's awake, it's present, it's honest. And the world is starving for this kind of a man. Partners are praying for this kind of a man. Children are watching for this kind of man. And other men are needing this kind of man to model and show them that it is possible. You could be that man. You are that man underneath all these layers. You don't have to keep carrying the armor. You don't have to keep hiding behind the red pill logic or the black pill despair. You don't have to keep pretending that you don't care, because you do care. and you've just never had a place where it was safe to show it until now. The bridge back to us is not paved with flawless logic or perfect strategies. It's paved with moments of honesty and small steps and quiet truths and a courage that trembles. It's built by men who've been hurt and yet who still choose to stay open. It's built by those who are walking away from hate and instead walk towards healing. Not because it's easy, but because their soul refuses to settle for numbness. If you've walked away, you're not beyond repair. You're not disqualified from love, and you're not too late to return. The pain that drove you away, it can become the wisdom that brings you back. The wisdom that brings you back to wholeness and to a deep connection. So to the man who you were always meant to be, now is such a time. Won't you join us?